Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, my fellow EWATers. Welcome to lesson 58 of Wednesdays with EWAT. This is Shanti Kumaraswamy Street, your business English coach here at English with a Twist. Ready to start today's lesson on this day, the 7th of March. So if you're tuning in, you're getting that notification, do drop by and let me know who you are. Keiko, lovely to see you here again. So it's this week is the first week in March, and from last week when we had the big freeze, this week is the big thaw, THAW, where now every single sign of snow has just disappeared from London. So now it's clear roads, clear skies, and fantastic for running. So I'm back running. How's everyone? As you join in, say hi. I'd love to know if you are new to this class, then please tell me who you are, where you're from, and I'd like to welcome you very much to Wednesdays with EWAT. This is a place where business professionals like yourselves join every week for an hour of chit chat with me and with your fellow EWATers here on Facebook Live to talk about how you can become better communicators in business with English. So if you're a business professional and you need international business to get promoted, to communicate in your work, to do your job, then this is the place for you to be. I can see people coming here. There's Gerald. Oh, Gerald has gone straight in. What is the topic today? I'll be with you in 2 seconds to say I'm just doing the usual chit chat, Gerald. Wow, yeah, you don't have, you don't want to, waste any time. But yeah, I'm going to let you know immediately. Yeah, so welcome to everyone. If you're new to here, welcome. If you're my regulars, lovely to see you here on lesson 58 of today's class. So we are the 7th of March. We've started a new month here on Wednesdays with EWAT. And if you recall, 2018 is the year when I've decided that every month we're going to have a new theme. So in January, we looked at the theme of small talk. And in February, we were looking at time management and how to set your goals and how to achieve your goals within the time that you have as busy business professionals. This month's theme, so in March, we're going to be looking at business vocabulary, and in particular, business vocabulary that you will find in the business news. In business news that is topical to do with your industry, to do with your area of business, or perhaps topics that interest you. Maybe it could be economics, banking, engineering, technology, startups, entrepreneurship. There's so many areas of the business news. So this month we're going to be looking at that particular theme. So I'm very keen to explore that area with you. Now, for those of you who are my subscribers to EWAT, will have received the first post on Friday, and this is a theme I'm going to continue in this week. So we're going to be looking at business vocabulary that you can find and you can develop through reading, watching business news. So let me see who's joining in first. So if this is the topic you'd like, stay here for the next hour because that's what we're going to be looking at in terms of the topic. Right, let me see. Before I start, I want to say hellos to everyone. Let me see. I want to see who's everyone. I can see Gabi is here. Gabriela from Argentina. Lovely to see you here again. So glad you could make this week's class, Gabriela. I can see Gerald. I can see Keiko. I can see Sumesh. Anybody else that I've missed? I'm trying to, let me just see. I'm just opening up the Facebook page here so that I can follow much more easily the comments thread. So we are looking here. No, I'm up to date with everyone. No, Arsan, I forgot. Arsan, hi. Your name is not familiar to me. Are you new to Wednesdays with EWAT? If you are, please introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from, and lovely to meet you. Path, hi, lovely to see you. And Arthan, also tell us, what you do. Are you a business professional? Because this is where then you're in the right place. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so let's get cracking, or nice idiomatic expression, let's get started. And before I start though, I like to remind you, if you have not subscribed to English with a Twist to join the EWAT community, then I'd recommend you do so by going to englishwithatwist.com and adding your name and subscribing to the EWAT community. You'll automatically get a free e-guide of the 10 ways that you can communicate more effectively and successfully immediately with your peers, your colleagues and clients. And then of course you will have access to my free resources, which of course includes Wednesdays with EWAT, my business idioms video library, and of course the weekly lessons that I post on my blog every Friday, which is also gives you an audio version to it. All right, so that's it. I just don't want you to forget that. All right, so let's talk about business news. Okay, here I have a question. I have a number of questions I'm going to start with. For example, first of all, how often do you watch or read or listen to business news? If you could like to share that in the chat box with me, I'd love to know. So tell me, so Gerald, Gabi, Arsan, Path, Keiko, how often do you follow business news, the business news? And it could be, anywhere. So listening on the radio, reading, watching the news. Tell me, how often do you do it? And the next question I want to ask you is, where do you do it? And what I mean is, do you read the news on your smartphone, on a tablet, or do you go down the traditional way by buying the print edition of a newspaper? So paper. Path, you're saying so they're on the news every day, so business news. So you watch, do I take it you watch business news every day? Do you watch it on the television? Do you watch it on your tablet, on your smartphone? So you watch it. Do you read the news? Asan says, I read news on the internet. Okay, so you read your news, you get all your news on the internet. So whether it's on your smartphone or on your tablet or on your desktop. Path, you're saying TV news programs. Okay, great. The next question I want to ask you is, okay, so you watch the news. Now, I'm not going to put aside watching the news. Let's take where you read the news. Okay, so where Alison says he reads the news on the internet. Okay, what do you read? I know you're probably asking, Shanti, what do you mean, what do I read? Okay, here's the thing. I think, what do I read? And for me, it depends. If I was asked that question, what do I read? I would say it depends on the time of day. Okay, let me share what I do and see whether that is a similar thing to what you do. Most of us have a smartphone. Most of us get our news, get our information, look for information. We communicate through our smartphone. Okay, first thing in the morning, I wake up and I know I shouldn't have my smartphone by my bed, but I do. Maybe you open it up, and I normally open it up to the BBC News. And I scroll through. And what I read is the headlines. So I'll look at the headlines first. So you scroll. Okay, I'll have some interesting facts, but first of all, what are you looking at? You're looking at what? A newspaper, or are you looking at a news feed? And there'll be different articles, and the articles start with the headlines. So in the morning, I don't have very much time, so I'm going to read very quickly the headlines. I'm going to scroll. Yeah, and you're going to scan. Maybe an article grabs your attention, and maybe you'll just have a quick scan, and then you go. And then you start your day because you've got to get ready. Gabriela, you say, basically, I try to read everything I can about technology on the internet, and I read also all about business. Great. Okay, so you are interested in that sort of areas of business, technology, and so all about business. But what exactly are we talking about? So when we look at the business news, are we interested in companies news? Are we interested in the economy? You know, there's so many different things, right? But fine, you look at the business news. So you look at the different articles depending on what you're interested in. So maybe first thing in the morning, you scan the articles, scan the headlines, and pick maybe a couple and think, oh, I'm interested in this, I'm going to have a read. So you read very quickly, and then you then talk about, you know, you just think, okay, great, okay, I'll read about this when I have a bit more time. I don't know about you, but that's exactly what I do. Then what else do you do? How else do you do this reading? What do you do? And, you know, during the day is long, you're busy working, you're doing things. I don't know about you, but if you've put business websites on or news websites on your smartphone, you may have set up notifications. So the notifications might ping on your phone, right? And do you start getting those messages telling you there's a headline that comes up? I get that. I get that with, for example, I get that with CNN. I get that with the BBC News, sometimes the Washington Post. So, you know, you get the notifications, right? I don't know about you, maybe you don't, but they keep coming up. And then I'll look at the quick headline. Some of it I might be interested. Maybe I'll give it a quick glance, the headline, and maybe I can carry on what I'm doing if it doesn't interest me. Or the headline grabs your attention and you open the article and you give it a quick look and you go, oh, interesting, fine. That's great, interesting. I'm interested and I'm going to read that maybe later. That's a big if, right? I don't know about you. I always think I'm going to save it for later, but then I never quite do anything. Anyway, but I'll be curious to know what what you think. Right, then lunchtime comes. Now, I don't know about who of you does lunch. Who does lunch these days? Some people say, oh, I've got no time for lunch. Well, we all should make time for lunch because it's our time to just pause and take a break from our day and maybe then you use your lunch break for the time to look on your smartphone. If you're not looking at social media, maybe hopefully you're looking at the news. So maybe then you'll look back, again, look at the headlines, look at the news, pick up your news. So does that sound familiar? Is that how you read your news? You know, share with me. I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up and I'm really delighted. Thank you so much, people, for you enjoying this this lesson. So you know, is that how you read the news? Because that's certainly how I do it. I get lots of notifications and you start thinking, okay, yeah, okay. Some of it I'm so not interested, others I'll be interested and I'll do that. Okay, so let me see what everyone's saying. So Gabriela is saying, I read everything about business, technology, new teaching programs are available, and of course any interesting news. Okay, so interesting to you, right, Gabi? Larson says, hi teacher and everyone, I read and watch all things on the internet. Yes, do you watch business news? Do you read the business news? Do you follow the business news? So let me see what else anyone has. Okay, now here's my next question to you. How many of you read or watch the business news in English? Awesome, yes, very good. So sometimes I see news from the link shared by my friends. Exactly. We get that a lot on social media, don't you? You read an article, you read something that's interesting, and there's always the share button. And then you'll share it to friends or family and say, oh, you know, I saw this really interesting article. You might want to see it. And you share it. So then you look at that. That's great. Okay. Now, business news. Do you read, watch any of this business news in English? Be honest with me. Do you? Any of you do that in English? Do you follow this? I mean, because a lot of news is available in English, of course, as you know, and the internet is a fantastic tool, as we all know. So you get a lot of information on technology, on business, on everything. So do you pick it up? Do you read any news in English? You give yourself the time. So do you do it in English? Fantastic, Arson. So you read it all in English. Hi, Paco. Lovely to see you. Welcome to the class. You're new to here? So welcome to Wednesdays with EWAT. If you are new, let us know where you're from. Today we're talking about business vocabulary in business news. So I'm asking the questions about how often do you follow your news and how often do you read the business news. Now, if you're a business professional, business news is important. It is difficult to find the time always to read all the articles, but if we are to stay informed and if we are to be someone who has a lot to talk about, because one of the things is we want to build the topics that we can talk about. You also want to be kept up to date with what is going on in the business world. Because if you're in business, you know, when you're talking to potential clients or colleagues, then you need to know what's going on. Similarly, it could be in whatever your profession you're in, you want to know what are the latest developments in your profession, and, so that when you are engaging in small talk or when you meet people for the first time, or whether you're in a meeting or negotiations with people, you know what's going on. You know what the competition is. You know what the latest situation is, both in the economy, in company news, and, overall what's going on in the stock market. Certainly if you're a business, for example, if you're a business owner, and no matter what industry you're in, okay, so for example, you're in the retail industry, you're going to be interested in knowing what is going on in the retail industry. You want to know what's happening there, and you want to know what is going on with your competition. You also want to know economics, because there are going to be all sorts of issues that can affect the industry, the sector you're in. Similarly, if you're an entrepreneur, you're a small business owner, then there are lots of other issues that might have to do with your area. So keeping up to date with the business news is not a nice to have, it's a must have. And also it gives you plenty of opportunity to discuss and to look like you are well informed and an interesting person. Last time you were saying, I read sometimes business and politics news through the New York Times. Yeah, New York Times is an excellent resource for that. Not so easy, Lassen, but good for you if you do it, because, depending on your level of English, then those are, different things. Paco, you saying you do read the news in English and you watch TV news. Great, excellent. And okay, so Paco, you're in Murcia, in Spain. Welcome. Great. And I really try, and Gabi is saying, I really try to read all this in English to practice. Exactly. So here we have two things, right? Business news to keep up to date with what you're doing in the sector you're in the industry you're in. And you need to know so that you are able to communicate with competitors, with colleagues, and with co-workers on what's going on. Very important when you're engaging in small talk. Very important when maybe you're about to give a presentation. So maybe there's been a news item or a news announcement or an announcement made about your sector, and it looks good that you know that. Then, of course, if you're looking to develop your business English, to be able to communicate confidently and comfortably in English, then you need to read business news in English. Not only does that give you the reputation of being well informed, it's also going to give you the essential language, the business language that is often used in the business world. And it's also going to give you very important new technology, new things. Excuse me just 1 second. I'm just going to switch that off. I'm just sorry, that was just my husband's call, and it's he's not here, so I'm just starting. All right. Right, okay, so sorry, I just got way late there, as we say, a bit distracted. Just stopping. I'm looking for a person to practice. I think I'm good in the all the time. Okay. If you're looking to practice your vocabulary, your English, then you need to look at something like italki. You're looking for a conversation partner. This is Wadia Al-Shabani. I'm sorry if I hope I haven't mispronounced your name. Anyway, so going back. So business English, the news is a very important tool for you to develop the language that you're going to see in the business world. And not only that, a lot of new words and buzzwords that are used in business English come from the business news. Often journalists will invent new expressions and new words that some of them stay and some of them disappear. But the more you are exposed to that, the better it is also for you, because you will then, when you hear it or you see it, you will know then where it's come from. So it gives you a lot of exposure. And it's something that I very much recommend to my clients to do. So get yourself into that habit of reading the business news and knowing what's happening in your sector. It doesn't have to be just specific language, because if it's in your sector, you probably are already aware of the language that you have, the specific vocabulary. For example, if you're in food technology, or you're in engineering, or specific, acoustics engineering or mechanical engineering, or you are an agronomist, so you will know about food production. You will know about the specific language. No, here I'm talking about much more extensive vocabulary. And you'll also see idiomatic expressions and chunks of language that are used very often in business speak. So it is very important for you to get yourself used and, getting yourself into that habit of reading. But I see from what you're telling me, your comments, that you actively do that. So that's fantastic. So the more you immerse yourself in that, the faster it will be in acquiring new business vocabulary. I'm just stopping a minute because I have here Andy, who's just asked me a question. How not to mix the phrase? I'm not too sure what you mean here. Andy, are you talking about business use, and are you talking about business vocabulary? And just to see, I think you're new to Wednesdays with EWAT. Here we are looking at business professionals looking to communicate better in business, in the business world with English. Yeah, so you're looking to improve your business English. So I'm not too sure what you mean by that. So if you could explain a bit more, then maybe I can help you. Right, okay. Now, a lot of you already seem to know where to get a lot of this business news. But what I wanted to show you first is how to learn the new business vocabulary from a business article. Right, so say, for example, you have highlighted an article that you'd like to read in English. And you probably scan and you know that you will, you want to, you scan an article and think, oh yes, now I want to read about that particular article. I want to read that. So give yourself a bit of time, because if it's going to be in business English and English not being your native language, you want to give it some time to read that article. Now, there are a few tips here I want to share with you on how to develop your vocabulary in business English. I'm just going to stop here because Andy is now just said to me, but you look at business English, sometimes there are a lot of phrases, how not to mix them up. You mean when you're trying to produce them? Well, this takes practice. So you say you come across phrases. These are exactly this is what I'm going to share with you in a minute, Andy. So the tips on how to develop and learn new vocabulary through a business article. First of all, you need to give yourself time, okay? So the first thing in the morning, scanning through your headlines, picking your articles, you need to then highlight or, save or bookmark some of those articles you wanted to look. Maybe then when you have maybe 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whether it's during your lunch hour or you have a break in between whatever you're doing, then take that break and go back to that article. Then look at that article. And now remember, first of all, I want you to apply the 80-20 rule. Remember, we talked about the 80-20 rule, which is basically learning all the vocabulary in the article is not going to help you. It's not going to be efficient. It's not going to be productive. And in fact, it's going to be pointless. None of us can learn all the words, right? I mean, all the expressions. So look at that article and the headline, you're the one who's chosen that article. So there will be reasons why you chose that article. Maybe it's to do with the sector you're interested in. And you want to know more about what the article is about. So at the beginning, you've chosen this article. You know why you've chosen that. Maybe you've already got some ideas of what language you expect to see in this article. So, maybe if you've attended English classes before, this is what your teacher will say in terms of reading practice is try and predict, first of all, what that article could be about. Now you might think, oh, but I don't normally do this. But you will be surprised because most of us are most of us have an idea of what the article is about. Paco, you're just saying, headlines tend to be so confusing for me. I need to go further to understand the full meaning of some of them. Perfect, Paco, you have just picked the next topic of my blog. This week, I'm going to be sharing business headlines, how to understand business headlines in English. Yeah, headlines are confusing. And they're not just confusing in another language other than your own. Often they're confusing even in your own language because unless you have context, they're quite hard. So yes, perfect. So Paco, look, you see the headlines. You look at the headline. Now, you might understand it, but here's the thing. If you're looking at a sector that you know about, then you might have an idea. Yeah, because you have context. You have some background information, background knowledge. So I would suggest take the time, look to start off with, to build it, is pick the sectors that you are already familiar with. So if you're in retail, if you're in banking, if you're in the financial services industry, if you're in fintech, look at, use the sector you're in. You'll be familiar with that sector. So start looking at the business news related to that in English. You'll see some headlines. You might know about a particular sector. So then you bookmark, save that article and come back to it. Now you've got this article in front of you and you go, okay, I want to read about it. I want to learn about it. So first of all, you're looking to understand the article. So you could then look at it and think, okay, so what do I expect to read about this? So this is your predicting what language you already know. Now, if you only have 10 to 20 minutes to do this, don't worry. You don't have to spend too long. Just think, okay, so what do you think this is going to be about? Make a few notes. Okay, I think this article is going to be about, I don't know, they're going to be talking about it. Of course, the headline, as Paco says, is often confusing. And it could be headlines are there to attract your attention. So maybe they've attracted it, but then you think, I don't quite understand what's this about? I mean, what's it going to be? Of course, then it's supposed to make you want to read the article. So continue reading it, because hopefully that article is about an area you're interested in. Like Gabi said, technology, so that could be an area. So start reading that article. First of all, read it once through. Okay, don't worry about, oh, I don't understand everything, I don't understand. Read it once through and go, okay, yeah, I think I kind of understand the gist. I understand the main article, the main ideas. You don't have to understand everything. Now going back and looking at the vocabulary. So whenever you sit down to look at this sort of articles, think, okay, first I want to read just to get a general idea. Now I want to look at any new language, because as you're reading, you think, oh, well, this was some nice, interesting language. I saw that. Now, when I say apply the 80-20 rule, I want you to look at the 20% of words in that article that you're going to use 80% of the time in your sector. Yeah, so for example, if it is food technology, there will be certain words that you need to know. Probably if you're already dealing in English, in your business with English, you will have those ideas. You will already have those. So highlight those in that article. Think, oh yeah, those are interesting. Okay, oh, this is what they mean by this. Oh, this is interesting. Then you can look at new words. Maybe there's something new that you never heard about. Highlight it. And, some people will say to me, oh, Bashati, I don't know. I don't agree with that, because we all do. And that's why picking an article that has to do with your sector that you're already familiar with is a bit easier than something that is completely new to you. Yeah, so don't make life difficult for yourself. Start with what you already know. So pick 20% of the vocabulary in there. And it might be that just out of that article, maybe there are 3 or 4 expressions that you'd like to learn. You liked how it sounded. So great. Now, the next thing is have a notebook by your side and make a note of those expressions. Yeah? So if you're reading, highlight or make a note. Now, I am an old-fashioned kind of lady, woman, girl, whatever you want to call me, and I like a notepad. Yeah, there are many of you maybe who use flashcards. Maybe you use flashcard apps where you can create the expressions in a flashcard and then you review that vocabulary. I like to write it down. There's been a lot of research to say also when you write something down, the act of writing also helps you to remember things more easily. So that's what I tend to do. So if you've picked some of those expressions, highlight them and then write them out. But don't look at just one word. Look at the expression, the chunk of language, or maybe a buzzword that they've used, a new word, or maybe you've heard it in the past, or someone you received an article, an email from used this word, or you've heard it before. You think, oh, I've seen this before. I think this is an important, expression I want to use. And look at how it's used in that sentence and make a note of it. So that's what you want to do. You want to make a note of it and look at it as a chunk. You're not taking a word in isolation. Words do not live on their own. They live with each other. So take a look. For example, if you have a word like impression, and you see this word impression. Now maybe you've seen it before, but you've seen it in a different context. Now you want to see how that word is used in that article. It could be in a sentence like says, we all need to make a good impression. Or you gave me the impression that you would be good for this job. Or maybe the impression people have of migrants is often wrong. Path, let me just stop here saying I have a document called New Vocabulary open right now on my computer desktop. Fantastic, Path. So you are very diligent. You have a system. You have a method. Fabulous. So you have a document. So any new vocabulary, you see, you want, you highlight and put it in. Now, what do you do with this vocabulary then, Pat? So what do you then, so for example, you have this impression, you see these different ways, you see this, how it's been used. So you've got, with the word impression, you've got 3 verbs that went with that in the sentences I gave you. We all need to make a good impression. You gave me the impression that, or the impression people have. So you have an impression, you give an impression, and you make an impression. So there are 3 different ways. So you might have seen this word impression once, seen it used in one way, and then you suddenly see it in a different way, and you think, well, I've seen this before. Well, let me make a note. Then make a note of that. Perhaps you need to translate it in your own language of what you think it means in your language, and then create your own example. Yeah, so own it. Use those expressions, write it down, and then think, where did you see it also? So bring in the context. I saw this in an article about. So then you are associating that expression to a context. Because again, if I just write, make an impression for, or I see something to do with technology, maybe we're looking at checkout technology. Checkout technology. You like the word, you saw it in an article, you go, I like that, but you think, but what did it refer to? I can't remember. Most of us will not remember the background. So write it down. It was an article about supermarkets. It was about retailers. It was about shopping experience. It was about, so make notes. Try and make those notes in English. Otherwise, make the notes in your own language. So, okay, Andy, you start writing. Otherwise, Andy, you can always write to me separately about this. But great, keep chatting with me. All right, so you see all these words. So put it into context, right? So you write it down and then give the reference to that article. That, so this expression appeared in an article about. So you can see that association. Yeah? So that is where that expression would naturally happen, occur. So in answer also to what Andy is saying, if I'm saying something and then maybe sometimes, we will use words that are maybe expressions that are not used correctly. What I mean is that it's not associated to what you're talking about. It is out of context. That's why context is so important. And that's why when you're writing and making notes about vocabulary, make sure you have the source. You can associate where this came from. So that when you're speaking, then you're associating that vocabulary to the right place. So, that way it's easier. But even if you make a mistake, maybe you've used an expression and it doesn't quite fit the context, doesn't matter, because chances are if you're talking to maybe native speakers or proficient users of English, they may correct you. Hopefully they will correct you. But making mistakes, please don't forget, making mistakes is where you learn. So, but that's what I'm saying. So the context helps in this situation. So for example, and news articles give you that time to do that, because I saw this news article about, cars. And from this article about cars, there was plenty of language to do with the automobile industry. Yeah? So if you're interested in cars, if you are involved in the automobile industry, you will look at the language they're using in there and create a bank of expressions. And you will have it down. Now, are you going to remember it all? Of course you're not going to remember it all, because we have to see language many times before it registers. So that's why you need to record this language. Make it your own. You have to own it. So how do you own this language? How does it become yours so that you are comfortable reproducing that language in your own way? Because reading is passive. Now you need to make it active by producing it, speaking it, or writing it. And this is where it takes time. So this is where you need to play with the language. Take it, use it, play with it, adapt it, and try it out. That's how we all learned our language, didn't we? As children, as we're growing up, as we're learning to speak, we like a word, we take that word, we try it, we use it. Maybe we don't use it in the right way. Okay, I'll try it again and I'll do it. And that's what it's all about. So it's not just absorbing and then thinking somehow miraculously you will produce it perfectly. You won't. We have to, it's trial and error, like we say. So don't be afraid to try it out. Maybe you like, that's why when you look at news articles, that's why I say use the 80-20 rule. Use, 20%, don't try and learn everything. Select, I'm going to look at 5 new expressions from these news articles this week. And look at them, create a notebook or a document like Path has, put it in there. Write it out. Experiment with it. Next time you're writing about something or next time you're talking about it, try and use it. The other way you can also do it is try speaking it. Yeah, you see an expression in a news article, make the words and expressions your own by experimenting. So you see it and you think, okay, nice. Now I'm going to try and voice it and articulate it. Because in our mind, when we read something, we read it without hearing it because, well, we can't. So what would be good sometimes is to, if you like something, try and record it yourself. So put in a sentence and record yourself speaking it. If you listen to the news, maybe you're listening to a news clip on the internet. Often you can pause. And you think, oh, I like that expression. Make a note of it. And then you hear it and then try and repeat. So it is the repetition, that imitation technique. Because then record it and listen to yourself. Because when you listen, you think, okay, that sounds. And the more you are saying it, it becomes yours. You own it. Now, it's like when, all teachers, since you were a child, everyone tells us that we need to read. We need to read more to build our vocabulary, and fantastic. And that, of course, it is. And we develop and we build a lot of passive vocabulary. And the chances are you have a lot of passive vocabulary in you. But the thing is that we are only going to use 20% of that, 25, 30% becomes active vocabulary that we reproduce. And that's okay. That's also in our native language. But we use a lot of it, we learn a lot of vocabulary, but we don't necessarily reproduce it ourselves. So we don't end up owning it. The only way we're going to own it is if we use it. And how we use it is if we try. So that's going to mean mistakes. That's going to be looking maybe a bit silly, using it in the wrong way, but that's the only way you're going to do it. So in answers to some of the questions here, when people ask, Andy asks, so how do I make it without getting confused? You are probably going to get confused, but you need to get confused before you get it right. Yeah, and that's the only way. And the more confused we get, the less confused we become, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? It's like anything in life, right? You learn the piano, you learn a guitar, you learn to run, you learn to run, for fitness, or you go to the gym and you start using weights. At the beginning, it's fine, it's strange, or you don't know how to use a machine. You don't know what quite, now, or someone's teaching you how to use your software. Right? You get some new software. Oh, this new software is going to be fantastic. I mean, I'm learning so much software at the moment for my business and things. And people go, oh, this wonderful resource, you must try, blah, blah, blah. Now, I can watch all the YouTube videos to show me how. But if I don't try it myself, I will never learn it. We have to actively try. So reading your articles, your news articles, really very important, because it gives you all that necessary language, but you then need to own it. So that's why that 80-20 rule is so, so important. Don't try and give yourself that impossible task. Say, okay, these are some I need to know. This article is really interesting. I like some of these expressions. Oh, I like that expression. Don't know why, but I'm going to make a note. And I'm going to see how it was used. If you can't be bothered to write, although I say write because your brain remembers the act of writing, do that. Try it, everyone. It sounds time consuming, and it is. It does take time. But learning anything that's worthwhile takes time. And in this busy world that we have where everyone wants results in 2 seconds, you know, I'm not here to give you 3-minute miraculous way of learning. You've got to do it. Yeah, you need to do it. Yeah, oh, Andy, I'm glad you like that. Yeah. So actively try it. You've got to try it out. So maybe you've seen it, tried in an email you're going to write, or tried with a colleague, you know, sort of experiment. You know, it doesn't matter because people know that English is a second language for you. It's not your native language. Yeah, so don't, you know, experiment, try. I mean, it's the same with me with Italian, for example. Italian is my second language. And, you know, there are plenty of words I learn. You know, I'll be reading the newspaper and I see some expressions. I go, oh, really interesting. I like that. But I commit it to my memory and I don't bother. Now, I don't need business Italian. But it would be very important if I did it, I need to then use it. Otherwise, I'll never remember it. No way. And, you know, your brain is a muscle. So it needs to be used. Okay. So try it out, ladies and gentlemen, and let me know how you do. You know, but this is what I'm here for. It's to give you these tips. There's no magic formula. You need to try it out. But the news articles, as I say, you're already doing it, and I'm so glad you guys are doing it. The web, you know, the world, the internet is fantastic because you've access to so many articles now. So my next point here in this lesson is to look at where you can find business news in English. Already some of you are saying you do. You look at the BBC News. Some of you are already reading the New York Times. Now, let me just give you, say you've got, you know, it's accessing. And so many people are reading online digital versions rather than print versions. So if that's how you do it, fine. If you have a print version, then great, whatever, you know, you use. Now let me give you some examples of what good newspapers for business news you have in English. For example, as we mentioned, the New York Times, which is an American newspaper. Here in the UK, we have the Times, we have the Guardian. And the Guardian, for example, online is still a free newspaper. The Times allows you to read some stuff, but then after a while it then asks you to subscribe. Yeah, Andy, the Daily Mail is easier than the New York Times. Yes, there's a difference between the Daily Mail and the New York Times, of course. In Britain, we call, in the UK, we call, you know, there are two types of newspapers. We have broadsheets. Broadsheets meaning the big newspapers, but now they're all compact. And the tabloids. Now, I categorize the Daily Mail as a tabloid. Now, tabloid is to say that the news that they have, for me, it's not serious news. Serious news in the sense that they don't always give you good reporting. And there's a lot of gossip and rubbish in there. Sorry. The newspapers, I like the newspapers, but of course, you're absolutely right, Andy, the New York Times is difficult. So it takes a while to learn. And the Times UK, the Guardian is a bit easier. So the Guardian, as I was saying, online is still freely available to everyone. Of course, if you are keen on reading the Guardian, then I would also recommend that you help them by donating or subscribing to them, giving them a little donation. That's what I do, just to help. But later on this month, I will be sharing with you a newspaper article that I'm preparing at the moment to show you what vocabulary you will discover in a newspaper article. and I'm going to be sharing that with you. So stay tuned. Now, the other one is the Wall Street Journal, which is an American paper, business news, again, quite difficult. The Independent is a UK newspaper, which I like very much. There's the Telegraph UK. There's the Times of India, which is an English-speaking newspaper, which is very good. And the Washington Post. This is just to name a few. You have, of course, the online news organizations like CNN, BBC, Reuters, Bloomberg News for business news specifically, and Sky News. And you've got news websites, of course. You've got things like the Business Insider, Forbes, Harvard Business Review, and I'm sure many of you have other things you probably use, different news sites. So there are different news sites. Now with the newspapers, of course, the trouble, and there's of course the Financial Times. Sorry, did I mention the Financial Times? I didn't. Now the trouble with the Financial Times, and that is hard, even for proficient users, but the Financial Times, you need to be a subscriber to it, and it's quite expensive. So I don't tend to sort of say to people, oh, read the Financial Times, because it's hard. So the newspapers, the Guardian, the BBC, CNN, Reuters, Bloomberg, those are great places for you to access business news. And also the articles are quite small. The one magazine that I do like and I buy and I subscribe to is called The Week. And I think they have a US version and they have a UK version. And what it is that they put together lots of articles. It comes out once a week. And it's a collection of the best of British and international news articles. And they are in short, and what I like about it, it's they're short. You know, because some news articles can be super long, especially if you're looking at the opinions page, and that can be very difficult for learners. So I know, you know, you need to sort of access, you know, something that's a bit easier. Paco, you're saying in my area we have some very good local newspapers in English for free. Brilliant. Now, do they have a business section? Do they cover business news? Because I'd like you to also get used to that. If you're looking at developing your business English, get used to reading the business articles, the business section of a newspaper. Get used to that. Get used to the language they're using in this, because that will develop your language, because there is a specific way they write, particularly if we're looking at share prices, we're looking at stock market movements. There's a lot of language they use. Paco, you're saying they also allow me to create new bounds with English local people. I am not too sure what you mean there, but just let me know. Okay, now finally, before we go, I just wanted to introduce you to a free app that I was made aware of. It was these people contacted me, and by the way, I'm not earning anything from them. So this is me I researched it, I looked at it, I've downloaded it onto my smartphone, and it's called Squid. Squid as in calamari. Yeah, just in case anyone's thinking, what does she mean? Squid. It's called Squid. It's an app that you can find on, if you have the iPhone or the Android, go onto your app and you can download it for free. And Squid is a news aggregator. So what it means, it collects all the news from different sources. Oh, Paco, you're saying it's a wonderful tool to meet English people. Wonderful. Fantastic. That's a great resource you have in Murcia. Wonderful. Okay, so Squid, looking at this news aggregator, right? So what it does is it pulls information based on different topics. So it could be lifestyle, it could be business, it could be lots of different things. So for example, you have a choice between marketing and media to parenting. So different topics. So depending on what you're interested in, you select the topics that you are interested in, and it will feed you all the articles related to the newspapers or news organizations that it's attached to. So if you're interested in a particular topic, you'll get all the news on that. So, and you probably already have a news aggregator app. You probably use one. I know on the iPhone, for example, on Apple iPhone, you have that, you know, there is a news app that allows us to choose the newspapers we want, and it gets it. So what's different about Squid is, let me explain. What they have is they have a category that is, yes, and it is free. You don't pay for it. It's completely free. It's a free app. So Squid, and this is what I mean, they have a category called Easy News. Now, this category allows you to access sites that are aimed at English learners like yourselves, or business professionals where English is your second language. So you might be still a proficient user, not so proficient, whatever, but you're an English learner. So you maybe, this is your first step in becoming more confident reading news in English. And, you know, so reading the real news could be a bit difficult, so you want to try it. Now, one particular news site that I like is the Times in Plain English. And it's a free online newspaper that features stories that are based on articles from the New York Times. So where, Paco, you've been reading the New York Times, you might want to look at that. So Times in Plain English, not just the New York Times, but other American newspapers. And plain here means easy to understand. And so the stories are freshly written and they reflect the original article. And you can get lots of articles about health and education, money and work, immigration law. So that's a great starting point for you to look at. And apart from those, you also have things like Voice of America, BBC Learning English, News and Levels, and you also have bloggers like me who then have their posts that have a regular feed. Their regular posts go into the feed. And so under Easy News, you have a choice. But you don't have to go into Easy News. You can go into all the others. If you like the business area, so for example, with the business news, what I really like about their section is they have 4 categories that I think would be very helpful for you in business vocabulary: business, startups, tech, and marketing and media. And lots of interesting articles that I saw, and excellent sites like Forbes, Entrepreneur, TechCrunch, Medium, Small Business Trends, Business Matters, and many more. So if that's the area that you're involved in, then I would really recommend that you look at Squid, download the app, it's completely free, choose the topics you want, and then you will get, of course, notifications, depends if you want notifications, but have a look and then you get to scroll. Now, Squid also has a tweak facility, which means you can highlight, if you're looking through the article and you see something, you think, oh, I like this expression, then you can highlight it and share it with people, or make a note to put it into your document like you do, Path, and that will help you. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. This is me sharing how to develop your business vocabulary through business news. As I said, it's this month's theme for March, which is discovering, exploring, developing, increasing your business vocabulary using business news, which is, as a business professional, you have to be following the business news. You have to. That's just, you can't be in business and think, well, I have no idea what's been going on in the business world. Similarly, like as a business English coach, I need to know what's going on in the business world. Not because I'm teaching business, but so I know what are the challenges, what are the issues that are going on in the business world. Rohit, you have just asked me a question here. Can you please make some videos on IELTS? Now, Rohit, you're obviously in the wrong place here. English with a Twist, here at English with a Twist, I specialize purely on business English. If you are a business English professional and you are looking to improve your business to become a better communicator in business with English, this is where I am. I do not teach students for exams, whether it's the business English exam or for IELTS. So if you want that, you're going to need to find another teacher for that. Andy is saying, I really want you to try and write a business article in English. In your opinion, do we need a teacher to correct our writing? Okay, you're going to have to ask me this question perhaps in what am I trying to say? The Facebook page. Send me a message, and so then I can read what you're looking for. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. An hour has passed. I can't believe it. Wow, time flies, huh? I've had a great time. I hope I've been able to give you some useful ideas, useful tips on how to develop your vocabulary. Let me know how you get on. Share with me any news articles you like. But as I say, this month's theme is all about this. Next week, I'll be sharing with you about the famous news headlines. How do we understand business news headlines? What do we need to look out for? And there you need to understand how business headlines are created, what goes behind the thinking. So I'll be sharing with you, but you will get the article first in the blog post on Friday. So if you haven't subscribed to EWAT, please do so. Go to EnglishWithATwist.com and join the EWAT community. There you get to see the post. But if you prefer to join the chat and join the comments, then let's have a look at that. But don't forget to have a look at Squid. Let me know what you think of the app. As I say, I'm not earning a penny. I just liked it, and I thought I need to share that with my EWAT community. Thank you so much for everything. Thank you, Paco, for everything, for keeping in touch, for joining this class. I will see you next week, next Wednesday, the 14th of March, for the next class on the theme of business news and business vocabulary. This is me, Shanti Kumaraswamy Street, your business English coach here at English with a Twist, saying ciao for now. Take care. Keep practicing that English and have a very good week, ladies and gentlemen. Take care. Ciao for now.